Yeah, so often I see the conductors, not just in pop music, but like a lot of concerts, like they're just in front of them, like waving their hands. Very few do I see conductors go, you know what? No, I'm just gonna join in with them and sing with them. I've seen a few who've done that, and I'm thinking like, look at that. Like that's really what music making is singing in community, making music in community. That's why these students, at least my students, that's why they want to join choir, not just because they love music, but because they knew the people, they love being with the people. And so I think it's important that when we're thinking of our values, that needs to be people centered more than quote unquote excellence centered.
Welcome to Pass the Baton, empowering students in music education. Here, we amplify the voices of music teachers around the world who are passing the baton and creating environments where the music students are empowered. Together, we can help students transform from passive consumers to vibrant creatives. Welcome back to the Pass the Baton podcast. I'm Kathryn Finch.
And I'm Theresa Hoover. We're so glad that you're here with us today. Kathryn, I'm so excited that we got to meet today's guest, Darlene. I've been following her on social media for a while now and just have been really, really intrigued by her work. So I think this was awesome that we got the opportunity to connect.
Yeah. She had so many good ideas and just, gosh, it's hard to like stop and talk about one thing because it was really kind of cool to listen to how she kind of her whole year, how intentional she was with what she did with her kids, but also like inviting guests in to help kind of push their thinking. I mean, just so many and connecting with the community within her high school, like just really, really cool things.
Absolutely. And she also, we didn't talk about it too much during the episode, but you could hear her talk about how, well, I started by doing this, and then the next year I tried this, and next year I might try. So she also, as she talked about how she got the students there throughout the year, you could hear how for herself, it's also been a process. It's not just been like, I did this thing and now we keep doing the thing. It's here's how I've adjusted, I've tweaked things over the years, because I think that's important for us to remember. You do something once, and then you reflect on it and you think about how can I do it the next time, and that's what really makes it I think really the most student centered, because we're thinking about the students that we have as we do these things.
Yeah, it's actually really nice to see you got to see a big picture, a big project. And then she was also really good at talking about like, okay, well, the thing to try tomorrow could be this. And it's a very little thing. So yeah, you kind of got to see both ends, which was nice.
Yeah, I think people are going to really enjoy it. Before we get to today's interview, if you're ready to make powerful shifts towards student-centered teaching, explore the Pass the Baton Coffee Club. Members get an exclusive deeper dive audio extra and a Reflect and Act PDF download after every episode, plus access to our full resource library.
For more personal support, our premium tier offers direct access to Kathryn and Theresa in a private Voxer group. Visit buymeacoffee.com/passthebaton to learn more and join.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We are really excited to be joined today by Darlene Machacon. Welcome, Darlene. It's so good to have you.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to talk about music ed and student-centered learning with you today.
I know, it's our favorite topic.
Yes. Well, do you think you could start with introducing yourself a little bit and telling us more about your background and current role?
Yeah, sure, of course. So like you said, my name is Darlene Machacon. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I currently reside in Orange County, California. I also teach in the area. I teach primarily in an area that's called Little Saigon. It's one of the biggest Vietnamese populations out of Saigon itself. And I love that community. I've been teaching there for about 10 years. But I was born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area, particularly really close to Napa. So if you're familiar with Napa and wine, well, that's basically in my backyard. So yeah, so I really love, my families are still living there. So I like to go home and visit them and of course hit up wine country when I can. But yeah, so I teach at a high school called La Quinta High School in Westminster. About 90% of the student population identifies as Asian, primarily Vietnamese. So it's a really special community because even though I am not Vietnamese, I'm Filipino American. There's a lot of similarities in our lived experiences, and a lot of the students see themselves in me, and I can understand a lot of their lived experiences. I teach primarily choir, so I'm the choir director there. I also teach beginning and intermediate piano. And in some years, I also teach AP music theory. And this past school year, I taught what's called English language development, short, and then we call it ELD for short. And that was an experience that wasn't my choice to teach, but I learned a lot about what it means to work closely with English learners and how to really work with them on their reading and their writing and their speaking. But yeah, so I'm really excited because next school year I typically have had three choirs every school year, but now I'm going to have four. Yay. But no AP music theory, which is fine because AP music theory is something else. It's like, I don't really think about part writing every day like this.
Yeah, that's a totally different way to think about things.
But yeah, so that's my full-time job, and on the side, I like to talk about music ed and just reimagining what music ed can look like for our students on my social media. I'm pretty active on Instagram and TikTok, and of course, sometimes depending on the school year, I'll like take a break because I realize this is not my life. I need to focus on my students and my work-life balance. But it's another fun outlet to advocate for music education in a way. And I also have a lot of my own students even follow me. And I think it's one of those things where they have to see that I'm advocating for them at the end of the day, you know? So
Mhm.
yeah, so that's who I am. That's what I do. Outside of music teaching, I like to spend time with my husky. His name is Kobe. He's 2 years old. We've had him ever since he was 9 weeks. I do not
Oh.
recommend or like having a puppy for everyone. Having a
Yeah.
puppy is not for everyone. I will say that.
Yeah.
And he's shedding a lot, so we vacuum maybe once or twice a day. But yeah, so my summers right now have been spending time with him. I just started my doctorate at William Carey University, so taking
Yay.
a few classes there, and I'm also teaching a mecha class through Vandercook on culturally
Mhm.
responsive SEL. So my summer is pretty much play with dog, be in front of the computer, play with dog, be in front of the computer, and just relax, enjoy the summer, and catch up with friends. So yeah,
Ah, that sounds perfect. Well, okay, that's a lot. So your teaching job sounds awesome. Congrats on the doctorate,
thank you.
the summer courses. That's all fun. So you mentioned in there how you're active on social media talking about this whole idea of reimagining, right? Reimagining what we do here as music teachers. And I think that's a lot of what Kathryn and I talk about too, is we're taking this traditional music education and kind of flipping it a little bit or just making some shifts. And that's really what we wanted to talk to you about today, because one of the things that I saw on your social media was when you talked about a concert in the spring that was no longer led by you, really. So can you maybe talk to us about that?
Yeah, sure. So, for a lot of our listeners who might not be familiar with what a Pops concert is, a Pops concert is typically like the last concert of the school year. So, at least for a quote unquote typical choir concert cycle, I guess, you would have your fall concert, your winter concert, your spring concert, and then your pop concert or Pops concert. And when I was growing up and then in my early years of teaching, it was kind of implied that one does their more serious, more traditional, or more Western classical choir music in the fall and the winter and the spring. Like, and the spring is somehow like the pinnacle of all of your music learning. Like, oh my gosh, look at us singing in 8 parts. Oh my gosh, look at our vowels. And then the pop concert, which would be towards the end of the year, would be like, okay, now we can relax and do our dessert music, do our pop music. And for me, as someone who just loves pop music, like I grew up listening to Britney Spears, NSYNC, like that was my early 2000s was like my generation of pop music, and just seeing how our students are also connected to pop music. I realized that it really shows that that genre should just be put in a box and that students shouldn't like touch that kind of music, when in reality learning how to sing pop and even communicate a message through pop is totally relevant. And there are people who have careers specializing in that. So for me, I felt like it wasn't not it wasn't necessarily practical, and it wasn't really 100% accurate of what a lot of these students would do once they graduate. Because a lot of these students, they said they do want to pursue music, or they do want to do music on the side, but they're not, some of them don't want to join a classical music centered choir. They just want to, do singer songwriter things. And we're so lucky to live in Orange County, close to Los Angeles, where we have a lot of singer songwriters, a lot of pop musicians, a lot of specialists in that field. And so for me and my program, we start learning pop music at the very beginning of the school year. So yes, like we still focus on like good technique, good choral technique, but I try to have students be really versatile in their singing and try to see like a lot of crossover there. So with our pops concert, I really think ahead and think, okay, we have the concert in April. So what do I want them to do um, by that concert? I tell myself, I don't want to be on the stage. I don't want to wave my hands. I want to be in the back and enjoy the fruits of their labor. But of course, when you see these students in August, you're like, oh my goodness, I have to hold their hand. I have to be in front of them. Like, but at the end of the day, my philosophy is like, when they're singing, they shouldn't just be staring at one person. I want them to be listening to each other and feel the vibe of that and then cut off together and like or start together. I mean, I like watching a lot of a cappella groups, and a lot of them they don't
Yeah.
have a conductor in front of them. They maybe have someone who like starts the tempo, or maybe they have someone who like gives like the final cue, but most of the time they're listening to each other. And I feel
Mhm.
like that is a really big goal I want my students to have. So I try my best early on to not always conduct them and just go listen to each other, look at each other, which is kind of for them it's a little scary as teenagers. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I have to look at my neighbor. Oh, I don't want to look at them. I have drama with them. But it's also teaching them to put some of that drama aside and being like, we have a goal to accomplish. What can we do right now to make sure this music is done at the end? So yeah, it starts off with a lot of backwards planning. Do you want me to
Mhm.
talk more, like starting from there?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where I was going. Like, how does that work with the students? Like, how are you making those gradual steps, I guess?
Right. So
Yeah.
it's really helpful when I have my advanced and intermediate groups really take ownership and what that leadership will look like. So a lot of those leaders would have been returning students, and they're already familiar with my program. So they're the ones taking initiative in leading sectionals. I have already have established student conductors in the ensemble, and those are students who have been with me for a year prior. I even I even teach them how to do warm-ups. I almost treat it like a mentor teacher slash student teacher setting where they're standing next to me and I go, here, try this. And I even tell the rest of the students like, hey, like this is really cool for them to learn. Thank you for your patience. Like you all are very responsive. Because how else are they going to learn? A lot of people, they just
Right.
say, oh, just throw the student in front of them and just wave their hands. But even as high school students, they need to have that one-on-one feedback in real time with actual students. Because as we know, sometimes in college, we're getting that feedback, but we're working with our own peers. And I'm like, it's not helpful when my friend there's pretending to be a sixth grader. I need like real students in front of me. So
Yeah.
I try to give
Mhm.
that experience to these kids because a lot of them do want to be music ed majors in the future, anyways. So yeah, I have a lot of my student leaders kind of take ownership in that. In terms of the repertoire, I try to choose very simple, like maybe like 2 or 3 part music that I know is very doable for them in the beginning of the year, and I try to invite some clinicians who specialize in that kind of music and coach them. Sometimes even sing for them too. The kids get really excited when they're like, "Oh my gosh, someone's singing for me!" Because for some reason, when I sing for them, it's not that exciting anymore. I'm like, oh, okay. So then I'd be like, you know what? I now sing for educational purposes. I will no longer sing for fun. But yeah, so we start off with that. And then by the winter, so basically the fall concert is pretty much I plan a lot of the themes. I encourage a lot of the students to maybe like think like, hey, like in the winter, I'm going to start asking what kind of themes you want to happen in our winter concert. So some people do like, oh, it's Christmas music, blah blah blah. We do sing a few Christmas tunes, but we usually save that for any gigs that we have. But in terms of a school concert, I try to focus on a theme that is more universal.
Mhm.
And instead of going, oh, love and light, peace and joy, which I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's been overdone. Plus, love and light and peace and joy, that can be sung all year. You don't have to wait till December. So, the first year I started doing something like that, we did a theme on mental health, and our concert was in the month of December. And if any of you teach high school, you will know that December is when finals start coming up. So mental health was
Mhm.
all over the place. And it was also in between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And around that time, there were like families visiting. So some students were like, oh my gosh, like family drama. So just the concert's timing just felt so perfect. And what we did with that theme is we collaborated with our school's mental health club. And we had some of those board
Wow.
members come up and give a personal story about their mental health. And I gave them the titles of our songs and encouraged them to research the background of the songs. And they shared what they got out of it. So I kind of model for the students, hey, this is an example of a theme that we're looking for. And this is how you can actually collaborate with a club that's not part of our choir community. Because I tell the kids that if you're just in your little silo singing songs, wonderful, but your music and your voice is so much more impactful when you are reaching out beyond your little corner. And so I show them that, hey, let's reach out to this club because this club is doing a lot of things, and I think we can sing a lot of songs that revolve around that. So then the following year, when we did our winter concert, I then asked them, what kind of theme do you want? And it can be tough for some students, but as long as there's some sort of model and you try to give them as many ideas as you can, it is very possible. So this past school year, they wanted to do a theme centered on foster youth, and they collaborated with a children's hospital and other foster youth organizations, and they coordinated a fundraiser to go with that. And then the songs they chose were based on nostalgia, based on what it was like to be a child. So it's a very sweet, meaningful concert, or especially around that winter time. So from there, the students kind of get a better idea of like, okay, this is what's like to kind of pick a theme. This is the process of picking a song. I tell them to kind of look for songs that have obviously appropriate lyrics, but like meaningful lyrics. I try to encourage them to look for artists that are for marginalized groups if possible. Yeah, so there's a lot of modeling in the beginning. For the Pops concert, though, I do kind of for me, I do pick a lot of the music beforehand, mainly because it is really hard to find good quality music. And even if you have like the most amazing students, sometimes they're not sure what to look for. Like
Mhm.
they'll give me wonderful suggestions, and then I'll look at the bass part and go, no one has that range. Like, or I'll look at the Sopranos. I'm like, the Sopranos are splitting into four. Like we don't know. So, like, I'm sorry. Like, I cannot. No, because I was like, it sounds cool, but let's keep it doable, please. So I do pick a lot of the music. I try to stay in tune with a lot of the music the kids like. So I try to listen to some of their favorite musicians. And I also try to look a lot on J.W. Pepper, Hal Leonard, and I follow a lot of arrangers who specialize in arranging for a cappella music, because a lot of them will write arrangements for more current music. And sometimes I'm like one of those people who like to wait super last minute because sometimes a really fun, popular song will come out in October, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I
Yeah.
need to get an arrangement like now. So that's why like sometimes I don't pick all of my music until it gets way later. Like for example, last year, what song was really big? Oh, Die with a Smile by Bruno Mars and Lady Gaga. Oh my goodness. And then finally someone came out with an arrangement and I was like, "No, like I don't like this." So I didn't really like it, but my students really liked the song, but I thought, "Ooh, let's make this be a student-centered opportunity." So I gave them the arrangement, go, "Here, take a listen." They go, "Nah, we like the song, but we don't like this arrangement." I go, "Thank you." Thank you, because I didn't want to make the choice. Thank you.
That's great.
Yeah, so yes, I do pick the music in December, and and for me, I mean, because this is still technically, I still just finished my third year of teaching, so I'm hoping hopefully crossing fingers by my fourth year, I'm actually going to try this. I'm going to try like giving lots of choices for the students for the pop music and then selecting it from there. Yeah, because when you give a kid JW Pepper, that's not gonna work. So yeah, so what I look for in pop music is I have try to have them sing in parts because by that time they should be comfortable singing in parts, but also if the music sounds just great unison. Because there's nothing wrong with singing in unison, because at the same time the kids will be dancing, and you don't want to sacrifice musicality for them to, pop and then do this and this up.
Yeah.
For the people watching, they're seeing me doing all these movements, which that's what I'm doing. So yeah, I and then yeah, so I usually pick at least a good opening number, like a really fun, something bright and happy, and a good closing number. And then I try to pick ones that have a various tempos. And then I give those to the students, and I go, okay, what kind of theme do you see from these songs?
Mm.
And then I have a select group of students who want to write a script alongside it. So typically there'd be people who would go, let's do a cute little skit introducing the song, and they would throw a little pun there. And for me, that is just the ultimate like corny thing ever. So I tell them we can be so much more purposeful by like weaving these songs together and creating some sort of storyline. And so the first year I did that, they went wild with it. Like the first year we did it, it was a whole like love triangle that they created about a celebrity and a non-celebrity, and then how one cheated against them. It was a very, very typical teenage writing.
Yep.
Of course, at the end, like the celebrity tried to beg for their girlfriend back, and the girlfriend said, "No, I know better." And then the audience went crazy. So I think from there, that was when the students after thought we need to be even better than that. So we need to write something that's engaging for our audiences. And I go, yes, exactly, yes. And I
Yeah.
say, yes, engaging, but what is the main message you want them to get? Not just, oh my gosh, it's a K drama, but more like, oh, communication is important. Oh, like this person turned that boyfriend down because they valued the other friendships that they had. So I was like, we need to have some sort of message, not just to make the audience go crazy. So that's a really fun process, but it's also a very important process because it's very time consuming for the students. That's why I give the songs in December, and I have the students start writing the script basically during winter break. And then their deadline for a rough draft would be end of January. And these aren't like one or two lines. It's like full on dialogues that are probably
Fun.
about 5 minutes in between each song, because I tell the students like you need to find time to hire your cast, and they need to rehearse their lines, you need to do blocking. So
Hmm.
it's really teaching them how to basically put on a mini musical in a way.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions about the process so far?
I mean, I don't have questions, but I'm really appreciating how you're talking about this being a process,
Hmm.
not just like, here you go, do it, do the thing.
Hmm.
You're building it up and you're taking them step by step. Really from August, it sounds like, right? From the beginning of the
Hmm.
school year, you're thinking about this. How am I going to help these students get from this point to doing this concert in the spring? And I think that's really important for listeners to think about because sometimes we want to just like jump in and do the thing. Like here we are, it's March, make a concert, but we need to be intentional about it throughout the year. And I really appreciate that.
Right, yeah. And it definitely takes baby steps because there are some students where some students who want to take ownership, but then if they're plunged into the project too soon, they fall apart, and then
Yeah.
and then you just look at them as their leader or as their teacher and go, do I save them and hold their hand, or I let them learn their lesson the hard way? So it's tough. So it's good to
Yeah.
start really early and just slowly build that. But yeah, so in January, they should be working on their script. And I also have my student leaders start organizing their teams. So we have about, I can't even count. Well, you probably can count for me as I start naming them. We have a choreography team, a social media team. They're responsible for creating reels or TikToks to promote the concert. We have our decor team. What they do is they make a lot of the props that the script writers would want in their storyline. They also create posters for each of the songs, kind
Mm.
of like when you go to a movie theater and you see those big movie posters at a theater. So they do the
Yeah.
same thing with the song titles,
Oh,
and then
cool.
they put that on the sides of our concert venue. And sometimes the kids like to either take the poster home or we put it up in our classroom wall as kind of like a memory of the songs we used to do.
Hmm.
So yeah, I like to cover our classroom walls with more student work than posters that are not relevant to them or a bunch of words. I'm like, why do I need a bunch of words when I could just have like student created work? So yeah, so that's what they do. They work on that. And of course, the script writers, they start looking for cast members. They audition that. I feel like I'm forgetting a team. Choreographers, social media. Oh, my student conductors. So
Mm.
by this time, my student conductors are a little bit more independent in leading the group. I also, in addition to student conductors, I also have section leaders. Sometimes I do have an individual who kind of toggles between both, like the soprano section leader is also the student conductor. So they're responsible for, like for example, in the fall, if I'm absent, their job is to kind of check in on their section, make sure they know their pitches. That's the section leader's role, but the student conductor, I have them be responsible for more than one section. So, for example, if they're a soprano singer, I have them be responsible for both sopranos and altos. So that way
Mm.
their ear is also getting trained to hear both parts. So by this time in January, February, I do start off teaching the music, but then I like teach them like notes, rhythms, pitches, and then go, okay, all right, now you're on your own. So then a lot of yeah, I'm like you're on your own. And I go, okay, here you go. Like you know what we need to work on. Like, hey, you know where we should probably cut off here. Okay, this is a long phrase. What? Why don't you breathe over here? And then sometimes I ask them, okay, what vowel do you think will work for this? This is pop, so this is not the same thing as our piece that we did for festival. So I kind of give them a little bit of ownership in how to sing the music. And with the choreographers, I do there. Here's the thing with this generation of choreographers. If they don't take a dance class, like an actual dance class, but they're like, oh, we love coming up with dances, you have to tell them they can't be TikTok dances where you just stand in one place in one frame and you don't move. I was like, you have to walk somewhere, please. And I also, and this is what I've also learned with our venue is we don't have one of those overhead mics. So I had to change a lot of choreography where I said you need to be just facing front because if you turn around, we're not going to hear any of you.
Right.
So I give them a lot of those guidelines at the beginning, and they do send me drafts of their choreography early on so I can improve of it. And then we do a rehearsal after school teaching the choreography. I don't teach it, the choreographers do. Yep. I do try to learn a little bit of it in case like, okay, why are these kids struggling with this move? Oh, okay, I
Mm.
get it. Let's and then of course the choreographers know that I have the right to change something if it needs to. But it's really good for them, especially for the students who love to dance and love to come up with moves. And it's very they go, "Oh my gosh, it is so hard to teach choreography to 80 students." And I look at them go, "Yes. Teach
Uh-huh.
teaching is a challenge sometimes." Yeah. So yeah, we do probably half of our choreography in February, and then we save the later half for probably like March. Our concert is typically in mid-April. I make sure that they know most of the words to their songs when they start doing the choreography because for some reason, once they start dancing, all of a sudden the singing is gone, or they start lip syncing. And I
Mhm.
go, "This is not a TikTok video that we're doing. Like, we need to, hello, we need to."
Yeah.
Yep. So that has to be ingrained at the very, very beginning. But again, my students are checking in with each other. The main people who do the checking in are my presidents. So how it kind of works is with those teams I talked about, I have my other student leaders kind of oversee those teams and then they kind of pick other students who are not in leadership to be a part of their team. So for example, if there's a social media team, they find maybe 5 or 6 other choir members to be part of their team. The decor team, who is probably our like decor art leader, for our whole choir leadership team. She also finds like 10 people. And then I had 2 presidents last year because I just couldn't pick. I just couldn't pick, and they both had amazing strengths, and I wanted both of them to lead my choir program. So I had both of them kind of like divvy up on which team. So I do kind of have like this hierarchy and checking in. So I'm not like individually checking in with each person, but I'm giving the students a chance to kind of take responsibility in that, and I let my presidents know that if there is a problem, check in with the students first, try to resolve it on your own, and then if it really becomes an issue, then come to me, kind of thing. So yeah, in terms of timeline, we're around like February, March. So we're probably, so students already know their songs, but I will say it gets a little tricky because at this time we're also doing our festival music, our adjudicated music. So that's why I also teach the pop music super early, and teach most of it. So that way, like when we're in our festival season time, we can kind of take a break from it and then kind of come back to it. In the past, I did a spring concert with that festival music and a pops concert, and I was like, never again. I cannot do that. Um, so I just, yeah, so we don't do a concert for the quote unquote festival music. We just use that repertoire for, whatever event we have. So part of the reason why we do it so early or teach early is because of that. And the reason why we also have our pops concert in April is because the whole month of May for our high school is kind of blocked out due to other events. So
Mm.
I'm kind of forced to have it in April anyways. Do we have any questions about the timeline so far or about any of the student groups?
I didn't have a question, but I just, at the beginning, when you were talking about bringing in people to help, bringing in an expert to talk about vocal, how to sing a pop song or whatever. Like and then bringing in the other club you talked about to make a connection with mental health, like such a cool way to show the kids like, hey, I don't know everything. And, and we can all learn together from somebody else. And just, I guess, just the rich purpose in like combining with the mental health group in your program, like you said, that's not being one little silos. I think that's like a huge piece that we have to remember in all this. Like, you're not doing all of this yourself. You weren't the expert in all of it.
Correct.
And that's right. You
Mhm.
can't be. Nobody
Mm-hmm.
is.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so cool like teaching in a high school setting because there there's so many student organizations that also feel like they're being siloed. So I feel like, hey, why don't we help each other out and
Yeah.
collaborate with this, especially with music. There's so much you could do with music. For one of our fall concerts, we even collaborated with our Latinos Unidos Club because it was around October, it was around Hispanic Heritage Month. So it also made sense to do something like that. I think it's really important that choir programs not feel like they just have to be like, oh, I just have to do choir music, but how can you really collaborate and coordinate with other student groups on campus?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing that, kind of came to my mind, Kathryn, you often will say, think about what you can do, right? Because when we think like, oh, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do that. Because Darlene, you were talking about how you choose the music. That's
Yeah.
yeah. But so that's something that you're going to still hold on to, but you're thinking about, okay, but what can I let go of? What can the students take ownership of? So I think that's important to recognize that like we don't have to do everything. You just have to look for the things that you can do and that the places where you can offer students to have that agency. And that's worthwhile to remember.
Yeah. I think the other thing too that I noticed you said too was you are ready to step in when something isn't going the way it needs to be or they need more support or whatever. So, right, like I guess there's times in this experience that a challenge comes up and you kind of have to step in as the expert or the teacher and, you know, help keep, I guess to me, I've seen kids productively struggle and that you want them to productively struggle. But then when it's getting too far to the frustration level, right, then you got to step in and support them.
Right, right. I totally agree. And planning something like this, it does require them to meet deadlines and to really have
Oh,
good
yes.
time management. And so even my presidents, they're the ones who plan out, like they're the ones who do the backwards planning and they set all the deadlines and all that. And of course, do the students meet the deadlines? Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. But it's also a good learning lesson for them to go, hey, when you don't meet this deadline, if you don't upload your choreography video by this time, then the next day, they're not going to have anything to practice with. So there are actual consequences for them to not when they don't follow through
Yeah.
with that. And it's good for them. Obviously, like being in school, you also have deadlines for assignments, but I feel like with this, it's like, oh my gosh, like it affects like the whole choir program. Oh boy. So yeah, and of course, like as a teacher, I'm like, oh my goodness, it would just make more
Yeah.
sense if oranges. But I was like, nope. I always have to be like, oh nope, nope. My hands are up. There, this is a learning lesson for them. I have to. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So by around March, April, like I'm a lot of the times I'm maybe just reviewing parts. The student choreographers, they're in front of their peers and they're reviewing the choreography. I'm really just stepping back and listening, stepping in if I need to. And basically by concert week, I'm more of like a stage manager kind. I'm doing all the other stuff that the students cannot do, which is maybe like working with our sound booth people who, by the way, they're also students. They're students in our stage production class. So these past few years, I was the one who was trying to create their like what cues they needed and all that. But I'm wondering like, was that something I want to do for next school year? Like also have another student do that. So I'm still playing around with it. And that's the cool thing about this process is there's no perfect way to do it. You just choose what you feel is best for the program. So yeah, I'm in the back with the sound and the lighting, giving like, okay, let's do like a fade out here. Like, oh, could we get more of a spotlight here? Because the students themselves, they're the ones on the stage. They have no idea what their concert looks like. I'm the one in the audience, so I help like give. And sometimes I do like a last minute idea of like, oh, hey, can we add a little twinkle when they say this line? And the students are like, why are you adding this? I'm like, because it's just funny. So I have to tell myself like, okay, don't add too much at the last minute. But that's just what's really fun is that the students also trust the little things I will add on to their production. Um, and after a whole week of tech rehearsals where I'm telling the student sound booth people that okay, they have to do this, then I'm done. Basically by concert day, I'm just in the back and just overseeing them. And then in terms of like the choir students waiting backstage, my presidents are the ones rallying them together, giving them the speech, telling like getting them hyped up for the concert. But yeah, that's basically a general overview of how it goes. It does feel it always feels a little bit more stressful than it should be leading up to the concert because we'll set deadlines and sometimes we'll miss them or like they forget a bunch of lines or they forget a bunch of choreography. Sometimes it's even like 2 days before, but it always ends up being amazing the day of the concert. Always, even when the day before I'm like, we don't have a show. We don't have a show. No, we don't. We don't. They don't know their cues. They miss it or but it just always comes together at the end. And I always have to tell myself they're going to be proud of their work no matter what, as long as I have a positive attitude about it and as long as I showcase that I'm proud of them. And I always am. I'm always amazed that like thinking in the beginning of the year, they're like doo 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 coming to me going, I'm just here to sing. And here they are choreographing this, creating art for this. I had students who would come to my choir so shy. Like I would listen to them going, are they even singing? I don't even like I don't know if they're even, producing any sound. But boom, they would have like a main character role in the script and then they would do a solo like in between songs. So it's really cool to see how students just blossom through this process.
What about outside the classroom and like do they come back and are they involved in like what's the transformation after that kind of experience for them?
May I ask what you mean by after the
Sorry. So I guess I just mean like, does that like open more doors for them for other things? Are they like, I don't know, I think about my fifth graders who will like leave and we do something similar in a musical kind of setting. And then they come back and they're like, because of the musical, I'm trying acting now. Or, I just don't know if you have kids who are it just opens doors for more things for them.
Mhm. And in a way, I see them taking more initiative in other things.
Yeah.
I see them coming out of their shell. I see them more willing to try new things.
Hmm.
And I also see them not only trusting me more, but also trusting themselves more. I think that's another big
Yeah.
thing because as high schoolers, they still wrestle with, confidence, and they still, rely on what their peers think of them more and what adults think of them. But I feel like with creating a process like this, they really come out of it going like, oh, I can do this. I can do this. And they also feel more connected with each other. I've noticed even during the last one of the last songs that my advanced choir did, they got emotional because they realized, oh, this is the last song I'm singing with my seniors. Of course, it doesn't help that some of the lyrics are like, "Stay, don't leave." I'm like, oh, of course, like it's gonna be something emotional like that. But yeah, it helps them, yeah, really get connected with each other. And yeah, every year when I start mentioning, oh, we're gonna get ready for a Pops concert, the returners just get so pumped. They start talking about what happened like the previous year, talk about like some fun things that happened. Um, I will add on because earlier I've been saying, oh, I'm not on the stage. So last school year, I was like, I'm not going on the stage. I'm not gonna do it. But I had been secretly learning the choreography for their opening song. And we have two shows. We have a 4 p.m. show and a 7 p.m. show. 4 p.m. to really that's marketed for our students on campus, which I firmly believe they need to be going and seeing your shows. I think what's hard when it comes to a concert that is off campus is that, rides and things like that. But because we have a performance venue on campus, I go, our concerts need to be right after school so that way students have no excuse. So we have an early, like a matinee show for the students and for, assistant principals who want to be able to watch that show. And then the 7 p.m. would be for like families, families who come after work. So for the 4 p.m. show, it was all the students on stage. And then for the 7 p.m. show, I did my quick little introduction, like, oh, thank you for coming, and blah, blah, blah. And then I went behind the curtain and I stood on the third row. And the kids were like, what are you doing? And I'm like, you'll see. And the curtain's open and I'm singing with them. And they're just like, what? And it's funny because like the kids in the front row had no idea until we did a move where we turned around and then I just see them go, what? But so then after that year, I thought, well, I'm just going to join them every year anyways. And then I say, oh man, that means I have to learn their choreography and actually sing. Darn it! No.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like this past year, I joined them with their final song, and it's so cool because then they love seeing that their teachers joining them and having fun with
Yeah.
them. I also get to go, oh yeah, this choreography is interesting. No, no wonder they're kind of like not
Yeah.
together. But yeah, so occasionally I will choose something and join them on stage, but I'm not waving my hands. I'm not playing the piano.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not the one. I don't even like bow like with them because I want the students to get all like acknowledgement for that because it's their show.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And you were talking about like the things that you've seen come from the students with more confidence, being more connected. That's stuff that we know they need, right? I feel like we hear so often people saying, "Oh, well, kids are afraid to make a mistake. They're afraid to take a risk. They're afraid to," but you're giving them these safe spaces where they can do that. And that's huge, not only in music, but in life. So I think that's such a great thing that you're being able to provide for the students to have those opportunities. And how fun to like see you doing the thing with them, right? You don't just talk about choir and lead them, but you're actually going to get up there and do it, and that's
Right,
awesome.
yeah. I think also partly I'm just like, man, they're having fun. I want to have fun too. I want to join
Yeah.
them.
Well, music is supposed to be fun, right?
Right,
Like that's
right.
why we do this.
Right. Yeah. So often I see the conductors, not just in pop music, but like a lot of concerts, like they're just in front of them, like waving their hands. Very few do I see conductors go, you know what? No, I'm just going to join in with them and sing with them. I've
Mhm.
seen a few who have done that. And I'm thinking, like, look at that. Like, that's really what music making is
Yeah.
singing in community, making music in community. That's
Right.
why these students, at least my students, that's why they want to join choir, not just because they love music,
Mhm.
but because they knew the people, they love being with the people. And so I think it's important that when we're thinking of our values, that needs to be people centered more than quote unquote excellence centered. Because sometimes I see some
Absolutely.
programs say, we are all about our excellent musicianship. I'm like, great, good for you. Gold star.
Yeah.
But like, what about the community? What about
Yeah.
like the friendships? What about the values you're teaching them? Because at the end of the day, most of those students are not going to graduate and become music majors. They're going to be
Right.
engineers, they're going to be psychologists,
Mhm.
they're going to be working with people. So how
Right.
are we doing that in our content? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Oh, I had something on my mind and then I forgot it because I got too excited about what you were saying.
Darn it, being excited.
I know, I know. Oh man, but yeah, it's it's just really it's always encouraging to hear people talk about it. Oh, I know what it was. Now it's like come back to me. I was just thinking about how so I mostly taught elementary and middle school band. So I
Mhm.
had much younger students, but I would have students get up and do warm-ups and like lead warm-ups whenever I could because I thought I was good. And my favorite thing to do was just grab an instrument and sit somewhere in the ensemble because why not? Like I want to play, I want to be part of it and it gave me the opportunity to play, but I also got to, you know, whatever third clarinet player I was sitting next to or the trombone. I don't know. I just got to have a different experience with those students. So that was the connection that I was making to you talking about singing and being able to dance with them.
Nice, nice. And it also
Yeah.
just like a thought came to my head is okay, there's us as the teachers making music with them, but I also think of like the parents and the families watching us because they're so
Yeah.
used to us, doing our arm dances or playing the
Mhm.
piano or whatever. Um, but I want to show them that we were once singers in a choir
Yeah.
group. We were once having fun. So I
Yeah.
think it must be so cool for these families to go look at their teacher and having a
Mhm.
grand old time.
Yeah.
And
I,
then,
rem- I remember once I was playing in this community orchestra and I'd invited the students. I told them their families, here's this thing if you want to come see. And this parent was telling me a story afterwards that on the way they said to the child, "Well, what instrument does Miss Hoover play?" And the kid went, "All of them."
yes, one of each,
I was like,
everything.
"Yes, I've done my job." But it was just so cute because they were so used to seeing me just grab whatever and play along that they just assumed.
Hmm. I love
So,
that.
oh yes. Anyways, this has been so cool. There's so many, as I said, we've made so many connections to the things you're saying. I'm sure our listeners are too. One of the things that we tried to do when we wrote Pass the Baton was give the readers something to try tomorrow. So we've kind of extended that to the podcast. So we're asking you, what is something someone could try tomorrow, assuming they're listening to this, at the beginning of the next school year kind of thing. What's something that you would suggest?
Ooh, yeah. I'm also thinking of the context of the school year. Like, there's something
Mm-hmm.
I could say that will make sense for the summertime, and there's
Mm-hmm.
something that will make more sense if it was during the school year. So I think I'm gonna make
Yeah.
like more general
Yeah.
general
Yeah.
statements so
Of
it's
course.
relevant to any time of the year. I think is like, what is one thing that we could do in our classroom that a student can take initiative with, or like how could
Mm.
we get what is one small thing that we can get more student input from, and that could mean anything. That's so open-ended. So it
Yeah.
could be like, hey, let's like not drill this one passage, but why don't you work with a neighbor and figure out why, and so for that, the choice could be, oh, the teacher is going to be the one drilling it for them because we know exactly what needs to be fixed. Or it could sacrifice just a little bit more time for the students to take a mental break from hearing our voices for 15 minutes straight and just have them work it out with a partner. And that, to me, that's student centered because it's giving them that opportunity to figure out. Another thing is like, okay, instead of me leading the warm up, or leading the stretches, which I mean, stretches, could the students lead the stretches? Things like that. Or instead of like, oh, here's our rehearsal order for today. Students, what do you want to rehearse today? Let me ask you, like, what song? So it doesn't have to be some full on like activity or lesson plan, but it could just be like an instructional choice that we're making in the middle of a lesson. I think that's something that I feel like some teachers who are not used to quote unquote student centered teaching, they're like, oh my gosh, I have to have the students take over. It's like, not necessarily. Sometimes it's being more of a facilitator and making those small choices in what we're already doing. That's what I want to remind our listeners about.
Yeah, so much. Yeah. I mean, you can't do all these big massive things, you're going to burn out, right? And it's just not attainable. But right, like taking kind of asking that question every day, you're going to move forward in a lot of ways. That's really cool. Well, how can people connect with you and find out more about your work?
Yeah, so the best way to connect with me is to find me on Instagram or TikTok. My handle is at the Darling Music Teacher. So not
Mhm.
Darlene, but the darling, because my name actually literally means little darling. So I thought, oh, let's make a pun with that. And it's not taken already, so might as well use it. Yeah, so you can follow me on both of those platforms. I also started uploading a couple things on YouTube just to play around with, just to play around with that platform. But that's how I advertise, not advertise, wow, what am I, a business? That's how I like to share more about, my writing, or different things that I have going on, with my students and with my work. So yeah.
That's great.
And you have a newsletter too, right?
Yes, I have a
A
Substack.
Substack.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So that's also the link for that will also be somewhere on my Instagram. You could just hit
Perfect.
the link in my bio.
Perfect. Well, we'll make sure that we have all of those links in the show notes so people can just click and get in touch with you, because I know that they'll want to see more, because
Yeah.
this has been awesome.
Yes, thank
Well,
you.
thank you so much for your time, for all of your everything that you're willing to share. I think it's great to hear both the actionable things, the things that we can do tomorrow, but also to hear about what this can look like when you really are intentional about it over a school year. So hopefully it's giving some people some ideas of things they can try.
For sure, for sure. Thank you again for having me.
Thanks for joining us. If you have found value in our conversation, please hit that like button, subscribe to our podcast, and leave a review. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us grow our community of passionate music educators.